car in epoxy primer. Now remember, it's very important to follow their directions. This was a PPG primer and they've got some fairly critical instructions about using their product, which after you've mixed it, you have to wait the 15 minutes before you start spraying it. It's called an induction time. And anyway, so the car's in epoxy primer, and now I'm just going to seal it in a slick sand high build primer, which you have a 72-hour window on this epoxy primer, in which you have to spray the primer on top of it. Otherwise, you have to go back and re-epoxy it. Anyway, so this is me starting to spray my slick sand primer on top of the epoxy and get the whole car sealed. And I'm still going to have quite a lot of body work to do after that, but this gets it all sealed, and I don't have a window to worry about at this point because it's sealed. The epoxy primer's sealed, and then I can take my time to do my final body work. So this is the procedure I'm doing, and hopefully you like it. So with this particular epoxy primer, it gives you a 72-hour window in which to spray your final primer over it, or your sealing primer over it. So the window means that you have to get that covered before that time period is over. Now the epoxy primer is like etches into the bare metal and the filler and the different components underneath it. But if you wait beyond that window, it becomes too hard and it's catalyzed so that your primer won't bond to it correctly. So that's why you have this window to operate in. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who don't worry about the windows, and I don't know if they get issues or not, but I generally follow all the directions on the products I use. But you know, I'm not saying that everybody does. Now, there are various different types of primers. You've got urethane primers, acrylic primers, polyester primers, but I generally use primers which are the same component as the filler. So the primer's technically a very thin version of filler. So that's why the filler bonds to it so well, because it's basically the same product. But you do want to sand the areas you're going to fill, so it keys to the primer well. Also, a lot of primers shrink, and so the longer you can leave the primer on the car after your final priming before you paint it, the better. Now, the more expensive the primer, the less shrinkage you generally get. But with any primer, this is quite a good quality primer, but with any primer I like to let it sit for a few days and let it cure properly and do the majority of its shrinking, and then I'll start my final body work on top of that. But when I've finished all my body work and I've done my final priming, usually with a slightly different type of primer, not a high build primer, but made out the same stuff, I will let it sit for maybe a couple of weeks. Not always, it depends what the primer is, but I try and allow it to shrink as much as it can, and then I do my final sanding and my painting. But anyway, you'll see the procedure of what I'm doing here, and maybe it's helpful to some people. So if you're somebody like me who doesn't necessarily have major experience in painting cars, because you just don't do it frequently enough, often doing the primer gives you the opportunity to get the feel of the gun and the technique of spraying evenly, keeping your distances good and your speed good. Although I will use a different gun for my actual paint, but you know what I mean. You know, you get your flow going, and you know the pattern in which you may spray this particular car. All cars are different. This one being very large, I have to think quite carefully of the way I'm going to paint it, because if you leave an area too dry before you come back and you know, pull the paint over it, you're going to get dry areas, and that's not good. So it's quite a thought-provoking process, and you have to have a definitive plan of action. I've talked about this in previous videos, but different products require different size nozzles of your paint gun. This particular product, a slick sand, which is quite thick, requires a minimum of a 2.0 nozzle for my paint gun. And you can, you know, in the past I've used basically the same gun for everything. And you know, there are variables you can do. You can thin down your primer a little bit more and things like that. But if you can, you know, I would suggest, you know, buying cheap guns with bigger nozzles for different products if that's required, and you know, mixing the products as directed, and doing it that way, which is what I'm doing in this case. So I have 3 guns. One's for my epoxy primer, one's for my high build primer, and then I use a gun with the correct nozzle size for my finishing primer, and then I use my Techna gun for my final paint. And anyway, it's worked out pretty well for me, and you know, it's just something to keep in mind when you're painting and using different products, that you want to consider the nozzle size of the gun you have. Remember, you know, air cleanliness is very important to a good paint job and not getting reactions. So remember to drain your compressor regularly, and if your airline's set up correctly, normally you bring out a horizontal, maybe at least a 20-foot horizontal pipe with a T coming off of it, pointing down with a drain in that, and then you go into your water separator, your particular filter, and your final filter for your airline. So make sure that everything's clean, drained regularly, and that will definitely help you with your end result. And I've already spoken in the previous videos about how important it is to keep your work surfaces perfectly clean. You know, fingerprints and stuff will cause problems down the road, or can cause problems down the road. So you know, make sure you've degreased your surfaces and de-dusted them prior to doing any type of spraying. It is a lot of work, and it's kind of a pain, but considering you've probably already spent a year plus on your project, another couple of hours doesn't make that much difference. You know, 10 minutes here and there, we tack ragging things, etc. Makes a big difference to your final quality of your job. As you can see in some of the videos, I don't stop my spraying stroke on a seam. I go like 6 inches past it or so. You kind of want to get in the habit of doing that, so that when you do your final paint, you know, if you've got a door and it's, you know, sometimes you almost get caught into you just spray the door and then you move down and you spray the rear fender. Well, if you do that, you can build up a lot of paint on that edge there where the door meets the fender, and that's not good. So you almost like want to come past the door into the fender, and then when you do your fender, you know, you're pulling, you know, from just past the door to finish your fender. But little things like that are important. It's worth reading some literature on painting techniques and stuff. I realise that this monster car is not a show car, and you know, I haven't done it to a quality of a show car. It's been done as a daily driver, but I still, you know, trying to do the best job I can. And you know, my skills are limited, but even with my limited skills, I can still get pretty nice results. And for the average person at a car show, or you know, on the street, who looks at my cars, they think they're, you know, really cool and done quite nicely. So you know, I'm not an expert, but a lot of us who aren't can get, you know, fairly nice results by just taking our time and using common sense and following directions. But it's definitely worth educating yourself a little bit on you know, the products that you use, you know, the temperature that you're spraying in, the humidities, and all the little things that can make a difference. You know, the little things are worth looking into. Even mixing, it's important for good consistency with your mixing. You know, lay out your table, you know, upwind, so to speak, so that, you know, you're in a clean environment when you're going back to mix your paints and stuff. And have your table laid out really neatly with everything in place. Use a clean filter for every batch, so it only costs pennies. And you know, make sure your mixing is very accurate, and thoroughly mix your products really, really well. And all these little things, you know, make a big difference to the end result. Clothing is fairly important, is what you wear. You don't want baggy things that can touch your paint when you're leaning over your roof or your hood, etc. You know, fortunately in this video I'm not painting in my swimming trunks. I haven't got long sleeves on, which I should really have my sleeves rolled down. But a bit of a problem in Florida, it can get so hot that sometimes when I paint my cars, I'm sweating so much that you know, I try not to wear too much. But yeah, in general, you want long pants, you know, long sleeve shirts, and you can always tape the cuffs and everything. And you don't want baggy clothes, because it's a pain if your, you know, baggy clothes touch the paint and stuff. So, you know, think about things like that just before you paint. You know, you might find yourself painting and thinking, Jesus, you know, I should have not had this baggy t-shirt on, and it can really mess you up. So think about wearing fairly tight clothes when you're painting. If there's anybody out there who's watching this video and can think of things that I've missed which are quite important for people to know, or if you see things that you think I'm doing totally wrong, you know, let me know. I'd be definitely happy for some constructive criticism. And I really appreciate everybody who's subscribed and who has shared it with friends who maybe then subscribe. I'm nearly at 1,000 views. I mean 1,000 subscribers, and my site's only been up for 12 weeks. So obviously if I can get to 1,000 subscribers, that's a huge milestone. So it's great if people subscribe, and if they tell their friends about the site who might be interested in the same type of videos. And it's really great, and I really appreciate it. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well with your projects, and I look forward to maybe setting up a way for me to see some of your pictures and stuff down the road of projects you have done and ideas. Anyway, stay creative, and thanks again. I have to thank Samantha, who has taken a lot of videos and photographs of me doing my projects. I never really intended to make any videos, so this gives me the ability to share with you some of my creations, which I enjoy doing. And it was very nice of her to do this for me, and she did a really good job. we're going to change it up a little bit now. We actually know we have a channel and we're going to be doing it for people to see. So maybe sometime in the year you will see a big improvement in the way we videotape things and stuff. You know, I've actually bought a Mac computer with some good editing programs which look quite complicated to learn. So once I've learnt that, I will be able to do much better editing, etc. But as it is, I hope you're enjoying you know, how we're doing it right now. Just kind of winging it, as they say. Also, being unaccustomed to public speaking as I am, I realise the fluidness of my spiel isn't great. You know, too many pauses, too many ums, and you know, that hopefully will improve quite a lot. So I apologise for the disjointed voiceovers, but yeah, I'm just trying to get my point across and, you know, tell you a few tips that I've learnt, and maybe it'll help some other people. It's hard to comprehend how big this car is until you're standing next to it, painting it. It's like painting a boat, and it makes it quite a lot more difficult. If it was like a small MG or something, man, it would be so easy. But this thing's ginormous. You will see that I have a chain hanging over the tow hitch of this, laying on the ground. Believe it or not, that can be quite helpful because it reduces the static build-up on the body of the car, and which attracts dust. So it's always a good idea to ground your car to the ground. Anyway, you can see that the car's really starting to take shape now. The primer's looking really good. And I know I've still got quite a lot of body work to do, and you'll see that in the following videos that I actually still do quite a lot of body work on the car. But really happy with it. It's starting to look really, really nice. If you've watched some of the previous episodes of this build, you know, you will see where I've elongated my wheel wells and increased the thickness of my rocker panel, and how I transfer from the fenders into the rocker panel. And now that it's all in primer, you can see how that all flows together really nicely. And obviously you want it to do that so it doesn't, you know, instantly to somebody's eye think, oh man, that's not the original rocker, this, that and next thing. But that's kind of the beauty of it. This rocker panel is like 5 inches wide, whereas the original one would have been about 3 inches. And I've elongated the wheel wells, and everything seems to be flowing quite nicely into each other, which is obviously the objective, is to build a monster car which almost looks like if the factory had built it, it's how they would have done it. Anyway, which is funnily one of the comments I often get is like, man, if they'd built a factory monster car, it would have been like that. So that's kind of the look I'm going for, is something that looks outrageous but also kind of looks in proportion. done so clean you can't even tell it's been used. I've now put my high build primer on the car and sealed in all the epoxy. So I'll let that sit for a few days while I work on the trunk lid. Got to do the trunk lid, and then I'll block sand this and do my final imperfections. So I'll finish off this video by showing you the car from quite a lot of different angles with it all in primer. And you know, this is where you kind of reap the rewards of all those hours of work. And in this case, I think it was about 1,600 hours. And you can tell that the end result is going to turn out to be very nice. Now, I can see quite a lot of you know, imperfections looking down the side, which aren't that easy to see in the photographs. But the car is looking very good, and extremely happy with it. So please share with friends and subscribe.